In the previous video, we looked at this example here of a bouncing ball. We made the bouncing ball lose energy. It does a number of bounces, but loses energy until it finally comes to a settle. Now, with this animation, we only have the ball animated on the y-axis, going up and down. We're not animating it. We're not animating it rolling. We're not animating it going forward. In this video, we're going to take a look at it. We're going to add to this animation. We're going to make it also move on its x-axis. So let's take a look at that. Currently, it's bouncing in place, but I'm going to take it, let's say, to frame, we could try frame 90, perhaps, or maybe frame 85. We'll play around with this. And I'm going to move the ball over here. So it's going to bounce consecutively, boom, 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 and then it's going to come to a settle, approximately here, let's say. So I'm going to set a key on it by pressing S. And it's not going to do what we want it to do yet. Let's take a look at what happens here. I'll play my animation. And then you see that it immediately, after it settles, moves over here to frame 84. Now that's not what we want. We want it to be moving forward on the x-axis throughout its whole animation. So let's see how we can fix that. I have the ball selected. I will go to my graph editor by going to Windows Animation Editor's Graph Editor. And here we can see what the problem is. Right now my translate Y looks good. I like the way that that animation curve is looking. But if I look at my translate X, it looks like this. And I can see that as I scrub in the animation here, you can see that the X value remains the same until it gets to frame 72, and then it moves over to its final resting spot there. To fix that, what I will do is delete these keys only on my translate x-axis. If I were to delete keys on the y-axis as well, I'd lose my bouncing animation, which I don't want to do. So I'll select the translate x, I will select these keys, and I will delete them. And this should get us part the way there. Let's take a look and see what happens if we play this animation. And there it is. So this is getting there. However, it doesn't quite look right. It looks like the timing is a little bit off. And I think that what the problem is, if we were to select it and look at it in the graph editor, select that curve here, we don't want the slow out on that movement on the x-axis at the beginning of the animation. We do want the slow in at the end because it's going to be losing energy until it finally comes to a complete stop. So what I'm going to do is select that first key on my translate X. I'll break that tangent. I'll marquee select the handle and then middle mouse drag and get something a little more like this. So it'll come out more quickly, and then over time it will lose energy until it comes to a final settle at the end. If we compare it to our translate Y, you'll see that we've got our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bounces here, and then we'll have its forward movement on the translate X. Let's check this out. And that's looking better. I'll deselect it so we can get a better look at it. Definitely looking better. I think it could still use a little more work, but this is where there's a lot of back and forth between looking at your animation in the viewport and then going to the graph editor and making adjustments. A very useful tool for taking a look at this bouncing ball as I adjust and refine my animation can be found here under Visualize. I'm going to select the ball and then I will go to Visualize, Create Editable Motion Trail. Now the benefit of this is that we can actually see the path of our animation and we can see the arcs that it's making. So what I'm going to do, taking a look at this, I'm actually going to get rid of it. We'll use it again in a little bit. I'll select the ball and I will go to my graph editor and I'll make a few adjustments to the animation. So let's see, currently I have it ending on frame, it looks like it's on frame 85. I'm actually going to make it go a little further, so I'll just bring it over here and set a key. And I'll continue refining that animation curve. Maybe I'll just bring it maybe a little more like this. We'll see how that looks. So it'll be a little bit more gradual here, but we'll still have that nice slow in as it comes to a settle. And we'll take a look at that. And I think I'm actually pretty pleased with that. However, I'm going to do one little nice touch to this. What I'm going to do is go to frame 85, and I'm going to make it, as it comes to settle here on frame 85, I'm actually going to go a little further, maybe to frame 100, and I'll just bring it back ever so slightly, and I'll key that again. Let's take a look at that now. You see, that gives us the sense of it maybe rolling back ever so slightly. I think it looks a little fast right now. So what I might do is just come in here and adjust the timing a little bit. Perhaps grab these keys in my graph editor, and I'll just give it some more time. Currently it's on frame 100. Let's try 112 maybe. And I think that's looking better. 3. So I spent a little bit more time refining the animation curves on my animation off camera. Before wrapping up this video, I'd like to talk about just a few more things. So a bouncing ball animation allows you to actually explore a lot of different principles, a lot of the 12 principles of animation, and we'll talk about those very quickly now. So for one thing, we know that we can select the ball here, and if we go to Visualize and do the Create Editable Motion Trail, you'll notice that we can visualize what the arcs, the path that this ball is taking and these nice arcs that it's making. We can really visualize that using this tool. And arcs are one of the 12 principles of animation. A lot of our animations, we want to think about these arcs, how much of what moves in an arc. In addition, we can talk about timing and spacing. If I select my ball here and I click on this button here, I can step through my animation to each of the keys that I have set, and this is the timing of my animation. We can also go to Visualize, Ghost Selected, and look at the spacing of the animation. Now, what this illustrates is you can think of this as something similar to multiple drawings, where here at this peak we have our current frame, and then we have 1, 2, 3 drawings or frames before our current frame of 22, and we get the next 3 as well. And what you can see is that these images, they're very much overlapping one another, because the ball, when it comes up to these arcs, moves more slowly. And then if we look at something like this position here, you can notice how the spacing becomes greater and greater as the ball gets faster and faster, and then finally gets to frame 32. So this is an excellent visualization of what we might refer to as spacing. In addition, we can also talk about slow in and slow out, which we've already discussed when we've looked at the animation curves here. The movement on the y-axis is a perfect example of this, where you can see that this curve becomes less steep, indicating its value is changing less in that area. Here, it's changing more quickly. And again, we can see that also with the spacing, not just with the spacing, but also with the movement, if we look at the movement, as well as we can see it here in the graph editor with the way these animation curves are drawn here. So slow in, slow out. We have slow in, slow out at each one of these peaks here, where we get that nice hang time with the ball, and then we do not have the slow in, slow out here. Because we don't want it there. But slow in, slow out is also one of the 12 principles of animation. Now, in this animation, we're not using any of what is called squash and stretch. That's another one of the 12 principles of animation, but we'll be looking at that in a future video. Now, before I wrap this up, I do want to show you how to get rid of this editable motion trail. I'm going to simply select it in my outliner and delete it. If I no longer want the ghosting on this object here, on the sphere, I'll go to Visualize and Unghost All. We can play the animation, take a look at it, and see if it looks like we want it to look like. I like the way it looks in here, running it in Maya. I'm not sure, as I'm recording this, if I'm catching all the frames, and the next step that I'm going to do is something I recommend that you do periodically anyway, anytime you work with animation, and that is to do a Playblast. If you truly want to see what your animation looks like, you should do a render of it. Don't just trust what you see in Maya in your working view. Create a render. A Playblast is simply a quick and easy render that you can do. And here is how you would create it. So I'm going to right click in my timeline. I will go to Playblast, open up its options. And for this, I'm going to leave it as an AVI. In fact, I'm going to leave a lot of the settings here. I will change the scale to 1 or 100%, and the display size, I'm going to change that to from render setting. Now, I currently have my render setting at 1280 by 720, so that's the size that my Playblast will be rendered at. I'd recommend clicking Save to File and then giving your movie file a name, and of course telling it where to save it to so that you can easily find it. And now I'll click Save and Apply, and it will create my Playblast. Once it's done with the Playblast, it will open it up. And here is my animation. As I mentioned before, when I do my screen captures, it's actually skipping frames, so you're not seeing my animations as I intend them. What we're looking at now is my Playblast, so you should be seeing this without the skipping frames. I hope this video has been useful for you, and thank you for watching.